In the last video, you learned how to use Express to send back HTML. That allowed us to render some HTML for pages like the home page seen here and the About page, which we configured down below. Now we are indeed sending back HTML, but typing HTML in a string in a JavaScript file is going to get out of hand really quickly as we add more to the given web page. It would be nice if we could write our HTML in separate HTML files and have the Express server serve those up, and we can. So what we're going to do is configure Express to serve up an entire directory of assets that could contain HTML files, CSS files, client-side JavaScript, videos, images, and more. So let's go ahead and start this process off. But first up, let's create the directory that we're going to serve up. This is going to live in the web server folder alongside of node modules and alongside of source, and I'm going to call this public. Anything that goes inside of here is going to be served up as part of our Express server. In here, we can put in HTML files and our other assets. For the moment, let's add a single file, index.html. Index.html is a special file. The name means that it's going to get served up by default, so this is the page that will eventually show up at the root of our website. Now let's go ahead and actually create a very basic HTML document. I'm going to start up top with my doc type, so I'm going to open and close the carets, then exclamation mark doc type to specify what type of document this is, and it is indeed an HTML document. Then down below, we can add the document itself. We start off with our HTML tag, opening and closing that. Inside of there, we add two other tags. We add a head tag, where we're going to configure other things later on, like setting up the style sheet for this document. And below head, but still inside of HTML, we're going to set up body, where we're going to put everything that's going to display on the screen. For the moment, we're going to display just one thing. Using the h1 element, which we already used, I'm going to display a title, and I'll use something different just so we can see the change. I'll say from a static file, perfect. So now we have this basic HTML document in the public folder. The goal is to teach Express how to serve up the contents of that directory, and one important piece of information we need is the path to the public folder. And it can't be a relative path. It needs to be an absolute path from the root of your machine. Now, to get that done, Node actually provides us with two very handy variables. So we're going to have a quick aside to talk about these variables, then we'll actually integrate them into the application to point Express to the public folder. Right here though, let's go ahead and just use console.log twice. We're going to print two values that Node provides. The first is underscore dir name, which is short for directory name. And the other, in another console.log call, is underscore file name. Now, if we actually go ahead and run the program, it's going to print the value for both of these to the console. I'm going to save the file. NodeMon is going to restart things, and what do we see down below? The first one, dir name, that contains a path to the directory the current script lives in. So the app.js script lives in the source directory, and down below I have the complete path from the root of my hard drive all the way to the source folder. Now, obviously, your path is going to look a bit different if you have your application somewhere else on your machine and your name is not Andrew, which it's likely not, though shout out to all the other Andrews. And the other string we have printing is the underscore file name value. This is very similar to dir name, though instead of providing the path to the directory the file lives in, it provides the path to the file itself. Now we're going to use the dir name variable to get the correct path to the public directory. We currently don't have that path, but we can do a little path manipulation to get it. Now it's important to note that both of these values, they're provided by that wrapper function. So if you remember, when we debugged Node.js, we saw that our code gets wrapped in this function. And that function provided various things to our code, like the require function, which we've used plenty of times before. That is also where dir name and file name come from. Now, dir name doesn't get us exactly there, but it's pretty close. This is pointing to the source directory. We need it to point to the public folder so we can provide Express with that path. Now, there are two ways we could do this. We could use a little string manipulation to try to break this string up and get it to what we want it to be. But there's actually a core Node module called path that provides us a ton of great utilities for working with paths. This is done in a cross-OS compatible way, and that's the tool we're going to use. We can find more about path by heading over to the Node.js documentation at nodejs.org. I'm going to click on Docs, head over to the API docs, and from here, we are going to scroll down to P for path. Now, path provides us with a couple of methods that makes it easy to manipulate string paths. We're only going to use one, that is path.join. Let's go ahead and see how it works. Over in Visual Studio Code, I'm going to start by loading this core module in. Now, typically, I'll require my core modules before I require my NPM modules, and that's done just to stay organized. It is not necessary. So right here, const path equals. We are going to require path, and there's no need to install it since it is a core Node module. It is built in, and now down below, we can use it. I'm going to remove file name from our second call to console.log, and we're going to use path inside of here to try to manipulate the path correctly. I'll leave this first call in place so we can see the original path we started with. Right here, we'll be using path.join. Now, path.join is indeed a function, so let's call it as such, and it's going to return the final path. And we pass to it the individual pieces to the path, and it does the job of manipulating the string for us. Let's start with just one argument to join, underscore underscore dir name. Now, if I'm going to do this and save the file, what I'm going to end up getting is the exact same path for each. By providing just a single argument to join, we haven't actually joined any paths together since we just have one. From here, though, we can go ahead and pass in a second argument, a string, and manipulate that path. So if I wanted to go up a folder, I could use ... to get that done. Now, if I were to save the program, I can see that dir name points to source, while my second log points to the web server folder. From here, I could use / ... if I wanted to go up another directory, and now I can see that the string is pointing to the node course folder. Now, for our purposes, we don't want to go up two folders. I want to go up a single folder, getting out of the source directory. Then I want to use / public to point to the public directory. If I go ahead and save app.js down below, that is exactly what I get. We originally had a path to the source directory. We used the path module to get a path to the public directory, and now we can go ahead and configure Express to serve that directory up. We can serve up the directory by adding a single line right here after we create the Express application. This is going to be a call to app.use. Now, app.use is something we're going to explore in detail in about 3 or 4 lectures. For the moment, we're going to gloss over what exactly it's doing, though I promise we'll explore it in detail soon. For now, all you need to know is that it's a way to customize your server. And in this video, we're going to customize the server to serve up that folder. Now, we need to pass to it something else. And the something else we're going to provide comes from Express. We are going to call express.static. So express.static is a function. We're calling it, and we're passing its return value into use. Now, static takes the path to the folder we want to serve up, and we have that. It's right here in console.log. It starts with the path call to join, and it ends right here with the closing parentheses for the join call. I'm going to copy that to the clipboard. I'm going to paste it in, and there we go. That is our single line in place. Now, we could always undo that change and create a separate variable and reference that. So for example, I could create a const right here. I could call this one something like public directory path, and then I could store the value on that variable, and then I could reference the variable down below. Either way would work. I'm going to pass public directory path to the static function, getting things done like we had before. Now we can remove our console.log calls and our server is all set up. We generate the path to the public folder. We provide it to static, which in some way configures our Express application. And now we can test things out. And to test things out, we're going to go to the root of our web server. So make sure to save your files. Over inside of localhost 3000, I'm just going to refresh this home page, and what do I see? I see from a static file showing up. So this is the contents of our HTML file, which we set up in the public folder. Now we could also visit this HTML page by providing the explicit path. So localhost :/index.html. But since index.html has a special meaning when related to web servers, we can also leave the path off if we're just going to the root of the site. This makes sure that something loads if they don't explicitly provide a path. Now, this also means that we're never going to see the other route handler we set up down below. Express is going to work through your application until it finds a match for that route. In the case of our Express static call, it is indeed going to find a match. It's going to find index.html, and that's going to match the root URL because the file has a special name, which means that this is never actually going to run, so we could remove it as it no longer serves much of a purpose. So here we still have 4 distinct pages, though one is coming from that static directory. Now that we have everything set up, it's going to be up to you to add a couple more pages into the mix. So let's talk about what I'd like you to do. I'm going to paste some challenge comments in right here. Right here, your goal is to create 2 more HTML files. So in the end of the day, both the help page and the about page, those aren't going to get set up as individual routes like we're currently setting them up. Those are going to get served up as HTML pages, and we're going to put those in public. Now, weather is going to stay exactly as it is, as that'll actually serve up JSON a little bit later. So up above, what are you going to do? You'll create an HTML page for about with the about title showing up. And then you're going to create an HTML page for help with the help title showing up. Step 3, you're going to remove the old route handlers for help and about down below. And 4, you're going to visit both HTML documents in the browser to make sure you're actually seeing the files to test your work. Now, when it comes to creating those files, you can always use the contents of index.html as a template, and you can just swap out the title text. Take some time to knock that out, test your work, and when you're done, come back and click play. How'd that go? I'm going to kick things off with step number 1. I'll be creating the HTML page for about. So right here, I could call that something like about.html, and then I'm going to start this off using the contents of index.html. So I'll highlight everything, copy it to the clipboard, bring it over to the new file, and paste it in. From there, I'm going to swap out the h1 with the old text, and I'll replace it with about. Next up, we can set up the help page. So that is step number 2. I'm going to create a new file in the public directory. That's going to be help.html, and we'll paste the same boilerplate in there, swapping out the title once again with help. Now that we have this in place, we have steps 1 and 2 done. From there, we want to remove the old route handlers. So I'm going to remove /help and /about. And last up, we're going to visit both in the browser to make sure they're showing up correctly. So over here, I have index.html. I'm going to swap that out for about.html. I see my about page, which is great. Then I'll swap that out for help.html. And right here, I see my help page, which is also fantastic. So now we have a static directory where we can put all of the assets that are going to make up our website. In the next video, we're going to explore how we can include other assets like CSS files, client-side JavaScript, images, and more. Now remember, for the moment, this one line is not supposed to make complete sense. We're adding it now so we can actually serve up the directory, but in 3 or 4 lessons, we'll cover what it's doing in detail. All right, I'll see you in the next video when we're going to continue to build out the assets for our site.